The Suicide Squad 2021 is directed and written by James Gunn and stars Margot Robbie, Idris Elba, John Cena, Joel Kinnaman, Michael Rooker, Viola Davis, Jai Courtney, and a ton of others. And here we have supervillains Harley Quinn, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, and a collection of naughty cons at Belle Reve Prison, joining the super secret, super shady Task Force X enemy-infused island of Corto Maltese to perform a mission for Amanda Waller that is nothing less than suicide. So remember a while back when Marvel fired James Gunn for reasons, and then the DC studios was smart enough to grab him up? You gotta imagine Marvel is regretting that right now. I mean seriously, because this movie was insane, guys. This movie was insane. So let's get into 2021's Suicide Squad. And boy, oh boy, is there a lot to talk about. First of all, I went into this movie, guys, and I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. This is just... from the opening, first of all, the first half of it, I have to say, I just could not seem to get used to what was happening to my eyes, to what I was seeing visually, to what I was hearing, because the tone of it's so different from everything that I've seen prior to this, you know. What James Gunn has done, and this is what James Gunn does best, you know, what we saw with Guardians of the Galaxy. He takes these obscure comic book characters that not many people know anything about, and he makes them into something that everybody wants to know about. So of course, with James Gunn's skills and what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy, we were gonna get something amazing to look at. And I have to say, let me see, favorite scenes. I'll get into favorite scenes because it comes a little further down, but it's just, every time he did an action sequence, it was a little bit different than the one that came before, and I really appreciated that. You know, we have that opening scene that everybody probably knows about from, I guess, the trailer, you know, kind of like a D-Day scene thing going on there. But then, you know, you have this really cool, long shot action sequence that, oh my goodness, which heavily shows Peacemaker and Bloodsport. Of course, that's John Cena and Idris Elba. We have that kind of craziness going on there. We have these cuts that, I mean, I think that might fall in my negative. So I'll come back to what that aspect of the visuals. I'm not too sure where I fall with that yet. But it was very comic book like. It's the scenes where he would see like 8 years earlier or whatever, 3 years earlier, you'd have, you know, mission, rescue, whoever, that kind of thing. I don't know how I feel about that because it did kind of pull me out a bit when it was happening. But overall, guys, the visuals, the stuff with Harley Quinn, with, oh my God, I'll get into that. It's just, I really did not expect this. Such a cool amalgamation of the fantastical and the grounded, you know, putting together a kind of almost Expendables like action reality with a comic book world full of, you know, moments of extreme colors, and it's just, it all worked for me. That stuff really worked well for me. And then of course we have that amazing crazy soundtrack. I recognize some of it, but not all of it. But what I really liked is these songs actually fit. You know, the first Suicide movie bamboozled us into believing it was going to be awesome because of its soundtrack, because it played on everybody's, oh man, that song is so good, you know, this looks so cool with that song. But it didn't fit. Here, the music fits into the themes of what's going on screen, you know. It works so well together. The score, it knows when to make you laugh, when to make you, you know, when to make you scream, when to make you cry. Everything, it just so well done. The composition work here, it was really good. And then of course we have what everybody kind of comes for, the actors and what they're gonna do with these characters. And we have, I think James Gunn deliberately chose to go with a lot of D-listers. I think because he wanted to follow the a certain writer's way of doing things in the Suicide Squad comic books. But for me, I also felt like there was an additional reason for doing that, and it works, which is if you pick these unknowns, we are not coming in with preconceived notions of who these characters should be and how they should act. You know, it's something that happens with every time a new actor takes on the mantle of a big name superhero. We tend to be like, I can't picture him or her as that. Here, you take a bunch of D-list characters that barely anybody's ever heard of. You know, I mean, we're talking Ratcatcher 2, you know, not even the first Ratcatcher. Polka Dot Man of all things, you know. The only really big names here really, or I would say people that would be recognized easily would be like Captain Boomerang, Harley Quinn, and of course King Shark, you know. But Gunn gives us a bunch of new people, and these actors just, it's good, you know. They've really nailed that stuff, guys. For me, the standouts was definitely John Cena as the Peacemaker. It made me think of Amazon's The Boys a lot. You know, that character would fit so perfectly into that world. And I think John brought this really great sense of dark comedy, nihilistic savagery to this that I just absolutely love. This character, you know, when certain events happen, you're like, oh God, because I want to root for him, you know, but you tend to forget these are all villains and they're going to do villainous things. Another standout, Daniela Milo, I'm not pronouncing her last name properly, who plays Ratcatcher 2. I'm not familiar with the actress at all, and she just brought that character to life, and those kind of flashbacks, it made me think of Pixar's Ratatouille, the flashbacks of her and Taika Waititi, who plays the first Ratcatcher. Everything is just, it tugs on those heartstrings. You have characters like Polka Dot Man, you know, Polka Dot Man, and here I am, and I'm like kind of tearing up at stuff when, you know, he's going through his thing. So these actors, they really brought their A game with these characters, you know. And of course we have Margot Robbie, who is Harley Quinn at this point. I honestly cannot see who else could fit that role. But what she gets to do here, the way Gunn writes Harley here, is by and far the best version of Harley we have had live action wise ever, honestly, right? Because the first Suicide film just played on her sexuality and just completely forgot that this is a character that actually has a background in psychiatry and all that. She's not stupid, but that's all it is. It was just through that whole male gaze. Here we see the truly fleshed out, three-dimensional Harley Quinn. We get the crazy, but you get the sense that Harley covers a lot of darkness underneath all those, you know, puns and glib, stupid jokes and blonde moments that she seems to be having. That particular scene, and I'm not going to say what it is, and her monologue on why she chose to do what she did. Oh boy. And then of course we get her action sequence, which is one of the most memorable, the entire thing. And the visuals, you know, the way Harley chooses to see what she's doing and what it looks like, you know, the way her brain is basically trying to protect her from the violence that she is heaping up on these people. The way Gunn represents that, the way Margot, those eyes, the way she holds herself in that moment. Absolutely. If that's not my absolute favorite scene in that movie, it's definitely up there. But I've only seen this film once, so and I have to go back over these things. So yeah, guys, the visuals, the acting, the sounds, all of those things are top tier for me. Story-wise, I dig the story, and overall it works, but there's some plot holes here that are kind of crazy, you know. it's too early to get into it too much because I will spoil. But the final villain, who by the way I didn't know that was the villain because I avoid trailers like the plague. I avoid information on films like this. I went into this film as blind as possible, and I recommend you do the same if possible. So I did not know who the last villain was, but it's just stuff that was happening there in that final scene. You have this character Bloodsport, who we're told is, you know, lethal with and he can turn anything into a weapon. And you know, it's like, yeah, but his weapons, which are super cool by the way, that suit, crap, I have to get a collectible of him very, you know, as soon as possible. It just felt like it should have been doing more damage, you know, as to what came after, you know, bullets, no, rats, yes. I just leave it at that, you know. It's you know, stuff like that kind of like leaves me like, huh, okay, but I'm willing to forgive for now, move on, you know, taking the bigger picture of how awesome this film is. And guys, you know, I forgot one of my absolute favorite things as well, one of my top threes. Sylvester Stallone as King Shark. Oh my god, no way. He was just adorbs. And again, of course, this is Gunn's Groot in this world. I don't care. I really don't care. He was perfect. I loved him, and he was terrifying. He was equal parts perfect and terrifying. I was watching this with my boyfriend, and he's like, you know, I don't know if I'd rather get shot by one of those guys, sliced up by Peacemaker, or eaten by King Shark, because I think that one would be the absolute worst. It was nightmarish every time he ate somebody, and yet he had some of these sweetest, cutest moments on screen. And I need a King Shark plushie. I need to get a big giant king plushie, like my big gorilla here. I want one this size. You know? But yeah, huge props to them, and Stallone's voice work for Shark. It was just, I think it was smart choices the way they depicted that character. I really think it works best for a character, as when you think about it, silly as King Shark. So yeah, he's a 10 out of 10 for me. The stuff that didn't work though, and y'all don't get mad at me, let me explain myself please. Idris Elba, Bloodsport. Now I think Elba had two of the most, like, the best emotional scenes in this film. He was part of those scenes, and it worked well. It really did. His scene with his daughter, wow, you know, and oh my goodness, that a young actress, she held her own in that scene so well. But I think the issue I had with Bloodsport, as cool as a character as he is, you know, really, you know, that character, that visual design, the design of that costume was just so cool. That helmet especially. But he feels like a placeholder for Deadshot. And I think that was the problem. I just did not connect with that character as much as I enjoyed Polka Dot Man and Peacemaker and Ratcatcher and even Harley, you know. So I'm not blaming, I don't think it's Idris's fault. I honestly feel like when I think about it, it's the fact that the character is so similar to Deadshot that instead of me being like, oh, here's this awesome new character, let me see what his deal is, it was, as he pointed out, Peacemaker and that character is so similar, and then he looks so much like a Deadshot type that I was like, well, I've seen this before. I want to focus on the cool, crazy guy with the polka dots, you know, that kind of thing. So that was where I think that fell for me. Also, now this is just me. It took me a minute to get into the tone of this film because, like I said, I did not expect this going in. I really didn't. It was so different, and it was so unpredictable, and I mean that in the best way possible. I just really needed to settle into what Gunn was trying to do here. So yeah, the tone for me, I was trying to figure out what is this movie trying to be, what is it exactly is happening here. And that whole, overall though, when I got into it, when I realized how much this is like a really dark comedy action, almost horror type thing happening here, and I dig it, you know. So that's on me. That's just a bit of a nitpick. I would have liked to see more Viola Davis. You know, I really, you know, I didn't get enough for the wall, and she was one of the best things about the first film, you know, one of two of the best things of the first film. So I'm sorry that, you know, she didn't get more screen time. Like I said, there's some plot holes here, some craziness that just, you know, when you think about it, it doesn't quite mesh together as well as I think they think it meshes together. But overall, guys, this is most definitely a win for DC and a win for James Gunn and everybody else involved in this. 2021 Suicide Squad definitely lives up to expectations, and good luck to whoever is behind the screen and whoever has to write the next movie, because if they can't get James Gunn to do the next one, that person has a very, very, very high bar to climb. I'm giving the Suicide Squad a strong 8 out of 10. I think it's definitely one of, for me personally, this is one of those movies I can see myself really rewatching and reliving from time to time. I can't say that about every comic book every comic book movie that I've seen, you know, that kind of, or every movie that I've seen. I really think a movie that has rewatchability should get even extra props for that. So if you've seen this one, let me know what you thought of it, and let me know. Well, I think if you're gonna compare the two, you're gonna have a clear winner. But of the DC films of late, where do you think this one falls for you? And if you like this video, please feel free to hit that thumbs up button. It's much appreciated. If you're new and you'd like to subscribe to my channel, you can click on my face when it pops up over there. And you can check out past Marvel DC reviews if you've got the time right along there. So until the next one, guys. Bye-bye.